Hey, Shalom Akim, Shalom, Shalom, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, great millstone, for teaching us his truth, and salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquatim and listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Akwai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will, as always, an edifying lesson. And today's lesson, I kind of just wanted to go through, um, I guess, a bit of an exhortation in regards to salt, trace minerals. And I just came across this article, early today, and I just thought I would just go into and make a quick lesson out of this, right? Just in regards to, awareness, healthy eating. Um, and it says that, so this is on theguardian.com. It says, is it true that natural salt is healthier than table salt? Right? So I'm reading this on theguardian.com. This came out today. And it says, um, flaky sea salt, pink rock salt, or fleur de sel, right? And it says, thanks to a generation of TV chefs sprinkling gourmet seasonings on dishes with flair, it feels instinctive that these natural premium versions of sodium chloride are somehow healthier than humble table salt, right? So here are some of the, it says, lower down it says, and many of them market themselves that way, claiming that lower levels of processing, higher levels of minerals like potassium, magnesium, make them the superior choice, right? So here it says the benefits of electrolytes too are often overstated. She says saline drinks can be helpful if you're recovering from a stomach bug or training like an elite athlete on a restricted salt diet, right? It also has very what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Health properties too. Like for example, I remember growing up, there were a lot of, like in the Caribbean, there were a lot of home remedies um, that required salt. Like for example, you might mix salt with water if you had, like for example, a sore throat or like a strep throat or something, like some kind of bacteria in the throat, and like those kinds of you would gargle it for a little bit, you know. Those were the kind of ancient ways that a lot of our people, we still continue to practice, right? Because salt it has its benefits. And also in the well, I wouldn't say in the ancient times, but couple like years ago, like let's say like 50, 60, 70 years ago, it was also and still is a method of preservation. Like for example, that's where we say things like salt fish. The fish is in itself isn't a salt fish. There is no such thing, but it's just the way that the fish was preserved. It was actually a method of preservation, right? So um so pretty much it kind of is just going into some of the benefits of salt itself, right? And I kind of wanted to get the scriptures on what essentially has Esau has done to a lot of these important foods that are essential, for our daily living, right? So let me start off here and showing you some of the um, importances, right? So I'm going to go to um, okay, so this is Sirach 39, verse 26, and it says, the principal things of the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour of wheat, honey, and the blood of the grape, and oil, and clothing, right? So these different things, man, needs, to be able to maintain and have a functional, proper life, water to hydrate, fire to cook, iron is important to when you what's it called? A lot of our foods are missing that iron, because we don't get enough, um, like dark green, vegetables, salt, flour of the wheat, a lot of flours that we use, I should say a lot of flour that we use has been stripped of its minerals, right? And that's something I want to get into in regards to the salt, the honey, milk, blood of the grape, and oil, and clothing. Even though clothing as well is tampered, right? This is verse 27, and it says, all things are good for the godly, so to the sinners they turn into evil, right? So Esau, because the scriptures talk about how the soul that is within him is not upright, all these things that I've listed in the first precept here, right? All these things that Esau has essentially tampered with these things, so they don't actually perform the proper use that it's supposed to for your body. Rather than it's essentially it's satanic. So it people might think, well, what do you mean your food is satanic, right? It's essentially not serving its use. It's adverse to actually helping you, right? It's doing the absolute contrary, right? So okay, so I just wanted to read this here. um when it comes to, so I just picked this article here, when it comes to uh, sea salt, I'm sorry, Celtic salt, and kind of just pairing it and comparing it with, what's it called, table salt, right? So this is one of the ones of the salt that I actually use myself, right? So this is Celtic salt, and it says, also known as sel gris, which means gray salt in French, is a minimally processed variety of salt which originates from the coastal regions of France. It is recognized for its unique characteristics, which distinguish it from more commonly used salts. In this section, okay, I'll skip down here. So let's get to the unique properties, why it's a more superior version, right? Because like the precept I read earlier, these things are turned into what sinners do with these things. They turn it into something that is not beneficial for you. Esau doesn't, everything he does and puts his hands on, it has essentially become more, it becomes detrimental for you. With the things that are natural are suddenly, they are sophisticated. And when you go into the etymology of the word sophisticated, it means something that is adulterated, so it's mixed, it's no longer pure like it should be, right? So unique properties of salt. Now it says the Celtic salt is often noted for its distinctive taste, mineral composition, and appearance. Unlike highly refined table salt, it undergoes minimal processing, which helps to retain trace amounts of naturally occurring minerals, excuse me, magnesium, such as magnesium, calcium, and potassium. These minerals play various roles in supporting normal bodily functions. Magnesium, is very, very beneficial for the sleep, um, blood pressure, so on and so forth, right? Supporting nerve function, regulating blood pressure. The potassium helps to maintain fluid balance, supports heart and nerve function, helps to prevent muscle cramps. Calcium, the strong bones and teeth, right? So all these different things that are supposed to be contained in the salt has been stripped away from the salt, right? Let me go back here. So it says these minerals play various roles in maintaining normal bodily functions and contribute to the salt's characteristic flavor and texture. And this one is a little bit more, if you ever try it, it's more coarse. It's not as fine as and powdery as table salt, right? So here lower down, it's going to go into some of its the differences between the two. So here it's talking about conventional table salt undergoes extensive processing, which removes, here's the key point, removes most naturally occurring minerals. So just like the minerals that I read earlier, the potassium, the calcium, the magnesium, all these minerals are needed in your body to perform certain functions. Now, what does Esau do? He corrupts it. He corrupts the natural way. It's because he's the type of person, he doesn't like to wait. It has to be more convenient, and convenient is really and truly what's just costing us, and it's trickling down into our dinner table, right? Scriptures say how our food, as a matter of fact, let me get that. Let me see. Just bear with me as I look for this. This is Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 13, and it says, And the Lord said, Even thus that shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whither I will drive them, right? So this is one of the consequences of actually being in captivity, dealing with these kinds of, heathens ruling over us, because the law wasn't given to them. So because the law is not given to them, they're not operating in a mindset to actually bring forth righteousness down to your dinner table. You know what I'm saying? So hang on. Let me go to Deuteronomy. Where is it? Okay, this is Deuteronomy 28, verse 48, and it says, Therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which the Lord Yahweh Bashmel shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and the want of all things. So, in order for us to get certain things, we have to go to our enemies for the want of all things, right? Tangible things, even trying to get so-called understanding in regards to who we are as a people, because there's churches and mosques and all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of things that a lot of people do, but that's beside the point. The point is, we're under a condition where we have to go to our enemies for the want of all things, right? And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he hath destroyed thee, right? So the point really here is, we're under the curses, but we can still make certain I remember I heard one of the elders in Dallas. He said, even though we are a cursed people, we are under curses, don't have a cursed mindset, right? I believe it was the elder Ariella that said that, if I'm not mistaken. One of the elders in Dallas said that. But the point, yeah, that's pretty much the point. Don't have a cursed mindset, right? We can still be profitable unto yourselves, because scriptures talk about how we are the essentially to take care of your temple, right? Okay, let me just go back here, going into more about the table salt versus the Celtic salt, and it says, okay, I'll read this again, and then it says, conventional table salt undergoes extensive processing which removes naturally occurring minerals. It says that the result of is a highly refined product composed primarily of sodium chloride, right? So I think it's NaCl, the combination that makes up sodium chloride, right? It should have, so your salt should have more than that, right? Those trace minerals that I read earlier, right? So this is what is comprised, most of. And this is one of the things Esau does. When you look, so my suggestion, off rip, I would say to, stay away from like refined, and control the amount of refined foods, because remember, this is the nature. We understand through the scriptures, we know the type of person Esau is. He's very, very good with his words, right? One of the words when it comes to diet and foods is refined foods. But when you look at the definition and the etymology of the word refined, it is essentially going back. Re means back and fine means pure, so back to a pure state. Now, is that what you're going to get when you type in refined foods on Google or ChatGPT? No, you're going to get foods that are predominantly fried. They have lots of sugar, they don't have, they're pretty much calorie dense, but they're not nutrient dense. Calorie dense and nutrient dense aren't the same thing, right? So when we're talking about refined sugars, I'm referring to cookies, pastries, donuts, um, what's it called, funnel cakes, all these different types of foods that are not beneficial for the body, right? This is why a lot of people have certain, end up with a lot of diseases, because their body is still missing certain nutrients, because their body is taking and trying to break down this food, but they're not getting the nutrients that your body needs. And some of the nutrients a lot of these people need, they wake up, they're tired, and like, oh my goodness, I'm experiencing cramps. You realize, oh man, I just need a little bit of magnesium, but people don't know that, right? Scriptures say that wisdom is the principal thing, right? So the point really is here, going back, understand the nature of Esau. This is the way he functions, right? And know that what he's capable of doing with food. So one of the things he's doing with food is tampering with it, and you're not receiving the nutrients that your body actually needs, right? So continuing on here, as a matter of fact, let me get a preset, then I'll continue. I'm kind of just jumping over the place. Let's see here. Just bear with me. My thing's a little slow. Okay, this is Sirach chapter 10, verse 1, and it says, "A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. As the judge of the people is himself, and so are his officers. What manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. An unwise king," referring to Esau, he destroyeth his people. So down to the dinner table, the dinner plate, the food, the chicken, the vegetables, even the minute ingredients, has been stripped of certain minerals, because he's not honoring certain practices. He's not honoring certain, what's it called, customs that are essentially ordained by the Heavenly Father, right? Another example is the land Sabbath, right? The importance of that in agriculture is known as land fallowing, right? Basically, you leave arable land to recharge, regenerate, so it can actually be able to spend some time to rest, and that ensures more fertile soil. Fertile soil is very important. Those very same minerals that I read earlier are also very important minerals that are needed to not make fertile soil, but to, basically, it ensures fertile soil, right? When you leave it to rest, those things, it helps to, I don't want to say create, but I'm just using create as the best word in my vocabulary, to help alleviate certain problems, such as, for example, you have soil degradation, erosion, so on and so forth, weak soil, because soil needs to be fertile too, because it needs those same nutrients, right? Okay, let me go back here in regards to the salt. Here it says, additionally, table salt is commonly iodized, a public health measure introduced to help prevent iodine deficiency, which can affect thyroid function. While table salt is widely used in households and food manufacturing, excessive intake of sodium has been linked to health concerns and high blood pressure, and increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. For this reason, it's generally recommended to use salt in moderation, right? So you're better off to use more salt with the proper trace minerals. So if I use myself as an example, I put a little bit of Celtic sea salt on. I make like a yogurt bowl, and you get those essential trace minerals, right? Using the seeds, right? That's another thing also Esau tampers with. He tampers with the seeds of certain fruits. You don't get a lot of seeds that you should get in the fruits that you eat, I should say, right? It's a very, very important staple to require the nutrient dense. Aim for trying to um, have nutrient dense foods within your diet, right? It says here, so lucky, my thing is kind of frozen. Okay, let me just. Okay, here's the point I was referring to. So, lower down here, it says refined salt is produced by extensively processing natural salt to remove impurities and naturally occurring minerals, like I read earlier. The resulting product is composed entirely of sodium chloride. And that's ironic. That's why I'm saying from this lesson is just an exhortation to stay away from refined foods, right? Refined salt, refined wheat, right? All these different, foods. If you see refined on product, best stay away from it. If you have a woman, tell her, let her know, like, hey, go to the grocery store, stay away from refined foods, right? You know, because you're not getting a plethora of nutrients that your body actually needs to function, right? Lower down here, it says the resulting product is composed of entirely of sodium chloride and is often fortified with iodine to help prevent iodine deficiency. It is commonly used in processed and packaged foods due to its fine texture and long shelf life, right? So this is just about money, right? If you can have it there on the shelf for extended periods of time, it's just about making sure that it has a long shelf life rather than actual benefit for the body. Esau doesn't care about it. He's not a physician. A physician is somebody who cares about, making you more whole. He doesn't care about um, the welfare of the people. He doesn't care about that. You know, he's the type of person hogs all the resources for himself, right? And then give you the crumbs, right? Give you the like the crumbs, the little, bits and pieces for you to salvage from, right? So here it says refined salt is commonly used in processed and packaged foods due to its. Oh, okay, I read that. It says, however, excessive intake of refined salt and sodium in general has been associated with health risks and high blood pressure and related cardiovascular conditions, right? So they have other benefits. So I guess I'll just read off. I'll just list them off. It's quite long, so probably what I'll do, I can probably put this article in the description, so brothers and sisters can actually make certain changes, within the diet, right? Because remember, everything is turned upside down, right? So let me go to, where was I going? Just bear with me 1 second. This is Sirach 30:16, and it says, there is no riches above a sound body, and no joy above the joy of the heart. Death is better than life. I'm sorry, death is better than a bitter life with or continuous sickness, right? So, the riches, really and truly the riches come from, understanding these scriptures and understanding the way the Lord, intended us to eat, starting off with the dietary law, right? And then you understand, the ins and outs of why the Lord wanted us to, eat certain things, you know, and stay away from certain things because it actually causes more. It helps you benefit, removing, yeast, for example, for the Passover, right? Those things are beneficial for your body, right? It's all like when people think about what the Lord wants us to do, especially our people, they always think of it as something that is grievous. And the scriptures say that the law is not grievous, right? But our people think of it that way because they don't have a mindset that the Lord is actually trying to do something for their benefit. They think it's for their detriment, right? So let me just read these last couple points here in regards to the benefit of Celtic salt, right? It says electrolyte balance and hydration, right? So the electrolytes, like for example, it has sodium, potassium, magnesium, right, to maintaining fluid balance in the body. It says alkalizing effects on the body, right? 1 second, let me just, I think it keeps freezing. It says immune system support, right? Improving digestion and nutrient absorption, right? I know another thing that one of the brothers taught me was mixing salt with water and a little bit of lemon to kind of help digestion and kind of flush out your system, right? Especially if you have what's that condition called? Basically, like if you're kind of like backed up, if you're constipated, to kind of like flush out. Like it's kind of like a colon flush, basically, right? Detoxification properties. It says maintaining healthy skin, right? What else? That's pretty much it. I think, yeah, that's about it. But yeah. So I guess the big takeaway from this lesson is just to make certain changes within, the diet, right? And then be careful with a lot of Esau's. As a matter of fact, I guess I'll end off with that precept, because we have, yes, we're under curses, but we don't operate in a vibration that, okay, you know, we have a cursed mindset, right? We have a mindset where we can actually make improvements. um Psalms 55, excuse me, and it says Psalms 55 verse 21, and it says, and his words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. So it shows you the nature of Esau. You look at the packaging, you see clever, words on the packaging, but you realize when you look into the etymology of these words and you look on what that particular food actually is, you realize it doesn't match up, right? So it's just something to be mindful of. That's one of the things I've noticed. I guess I'll end off with this last precept, I promise. This is Baruch 4:2, and it says, turn thee, O Jacob, and take hold of it, and walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated. Be illuminated into understanding the way your enemy functions, the way your enemy works. Yes, this is one of the tactics that he does. He's very, very clever with his words. He throws a bunch of mumbo jumbo. This is why the apostles always push out that vibration to look up words and go into the Greek, the Latin, the Hebrew. Because you take on the spirit and the characteristics of a Berean to go into these things and check things out for yourself, right? Because this is the way Esau chats up a lot of people, because a lot of people, especially in the world, they don't look up a lot of the words. They're just words that are just thrown around, and people don't actually examine the words themselves that are being used, right? So be illuminated. There's nothing wrong with being illuminated in righteousness, right? Understanding this is the way Esau works. So anyways, I'll leave the lesson there. Lord's will is always our Ratasa. This was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Until next time, I say Shalom.